What's up, Sushi Squad? We back games more. Trove, and I'm sorry this video is so late, but things are just gonna kind of be a little bit all over the place lately. Most of all, today I actually had planned to publish the stream that we did yesterday, where we ended up getting my bard to level 30. But unfortunately, the music that I was using in the background turns out that it was like a misleading YouTube video, and it was actually like copyrighted music. Basically, I used like a lo-fi Genshin Impact remix, where it was supposed to be songs from Genshin, and then it turns out that half of the songs were literally just official Chinese music. So I'm currently trimming those parts of yesterday's live stream, but YouTube sucks when it comes to trimming. It takes like hours upon hours upon hours just to cut out a tiny little bit. So that stream will more than likely go up tomorrow or maybe the day after. I don't know. You guys are kind of seeing the forward, like this is the future. We're actually max level on the bard. We're 36k power rank, just barely. Oh, because I don't have an ally, of course. And what we're going to be doing today is, well, we're going to be focusing on trying this guy out in U10. And I'm kind of going to give you guys a little bit of my feedback towards the character. Obviously, the difference between this video and then the live stream is in the live stream, I was kind of discovering all this for the first time, whereas now I have a much more solid opinion about it. But it's been long overdue that we ended up making a video that kind of reviews how the bard handles himself right now. And I could tell you it's pretty lackluster. I'm really hoping that they end up buffing the character before it goes to the live server, because as of right now, it doesn't keep up, dude. Like, it's not as good as any other character with similar stats or in the same situation. Now, the thing is, the bard itself has a lot of weirdness to him. So if we actually use our ultimate ability, I've kind of explained that each of these different stacks that you're slowly building up, each of them will actually trigger a different ult. So the more stacks that you have, like if I trigger my left click, we're still in our speed ult, and then now we're in blue. So there'd be blue here for a couple of them. And then it cycles back to red, and then I would do, basically it's 2 green, 2 blue, 2 red, and then I think a mixture of each of them. I don't know. But the point is, once you get to the 11th stack, that actually is going to end up having our basic attack increase in damage by like, it's by like a ridiculous amount, like 200 or 300% more damage or something, which can end up being pretty darn good, especially in tandem with this ult and everything. But the problem is that you gotta build stacks, and oh my god, it just takes too long. You know, if I gave a big constructive criticism towards the class itself, obviously damage numbers need to be increased. But this ult really needs work. Like, it is just useless right now. Especially our number 1 ability just does not serve a purpose. Because the whole thing is that, technically, I understand why they built the character this way. Because they want you to give boosts to your allies. Trove devs, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. But from somebody who's been playing this game longer than you guys have... Well, maybe. I don't know if any of the old school devs are still there, but I've been playing this game for over 6 years now. And let me tell you, support classes just don't work in Trove. So stop doing it. Like, all Trove basically is speed farming DPS or boss DPS. And that's all there really is to it. There's maybe like 2 or 3 characters that can end up being built towards being a tank. But that's it, you know. And even as far, like, if you want to have a support class, the numbers need to be astronomically high. Like, you need to be able to consistently be healing your allies or give them a damage reduction. And I'm not talking about the Knight's ultimate ability, which is absolutely useless. I'm talking about something like the Tomb Raiser's number 1 ability, where it gives you a 90% damage reduction and actually makes the character viable and invincible, you know. So anyways, let's hop into U10 so that we can test him out. Granted, all of the stuff that we're talking about today, this is all subject to change because we are on the test server, okay? So that's what this video is mainly aimed at, is hopefully spreading the word, getting the feedback out there for those that don't already know that this class is not good enough yet. It can be, but I mean, technically any Trove class can be good. Just increase the numbers on them. So as far as just farming for level 30, it was actually really easy once you end up doing this quest line. You can only do it like a handful of times per day, but oh my god, the amount of XP that it gives you is absolutely insane. Like, I had no idea that this thing gave you that much XP. I was able to get to level 29 no problem, and then from 29 to 30 is kind of the biggest... it's the biggest gap of XP, so that made it a lot more difficult. Not to mention, at the time, the stream that I did yesterday, which hopefully will come out in a day or two, we ran out of quests from this guy, so I had to just do dungeons. But anyways, I'm gonna give you guys a realistic example here. Hopefully this guy isn't following me, just because I want to show you guys a realistic comparison of the damage of just me on my own, rather than with a bunch of other people. So the class overall, as far as my feedback towards the character, oh, this dungeon's done. I like it. I think that it's a great meme character, and I'm glad that they went for meme rather than serious. But the way that it is, this character is overly complex, and I don't feel fits with the rest of the game. And the other biggest thing about this class is that the crafting components for this character are astronomically high. They're ridiculous. Like, unless you're at the end game already, it is impossible to craft this character because it requires tier 5 resources from the Geode Caves. It requires sentient shards, which is time gated from rampage challenges. And overall, it just takes an absurd amount of resources to end up getting this character. And that is why it needs to be on par or do better than the Vanguard. But it's doing neither right now. So let me just give you a quick example. This is going to be a bad example just because, these are normal kill 30 enemy dungeon. But you can see, our basic attack is doing 9.7 mil. And a lot of you guys that are at the early game might be sitting there like, whoa, that's a lot of damage. It's not. Okay, that's 9.7 mil just with our basic attacks. Okay, let's keep that in mind because the only, or 9.5 sometimes for whatever reason. But the thing is that this character is, a lot of his abilities are useless just because of cast time. This is a mistake that the developers always seem to make whenever they're developing class abilities, which is disappointing. But let's just say, for example, I use my right click. Okay, so that did 12 mil. Okay, cool. But this ability is not only on a cooldown, but it gives you invulnerability frames. Okay, so I use it and then I'm holding left click. So keep in mind, it is basically a trade-off. So we cannot do damage while we have the invulnerability frames. It's only after the invulnerability wears off that we can start doing damage. So this ability is absolutely pointless. Because why would I end up doing 12 mil once when I can do 9.5, 9.7 mil 2 or 3 times within a much shorter time frame? Because that's basically what Trove's end game boils down to, is how fast can you end up dealing damage? And if the abilities don't synergize well enough with your basic attack, it just makes it absolutely useless. Our number 1 ability is in the same boat, where you cast it once, it doesn't do anything, so that's wasted animation time. Just to end up having that explosion that does another 15 mil. So why would I end up doing that and wasting the attack time when I could just do my basic attack twice and do more damage? Right? That's the problem with the character, okay? Now, the other thing too is, a lot of this could be alleviated by just having higher damage numbers, but ultimately I would rather see higher damage numbers with the basic attack versus even using the other abilities, because unfortunately they're pretty useless. Now, the one thing that is nice about the character, which can be pretty consistent, is if you use Epic Rift, the first 2 stacks right here are always going to end up being the Jubilant song, which gives you movement speed, okay? And you can see we've actually got 144 movement speed, so that's pretty good. That's not including if we trigger Raptor Berserker, it gets even higher at 186. And then if we had Pyro Disc, if we had Trailblazing, you can see the potential of this guy being a speed farmer. Now, the only problem is that this ultimate only lasts like a few seconds before it's gone, and then you're still on cooldown, which is a little bit disappointing when compared to other characters. But you can pretty consistently have it going off. Like, that's the thing. It's not awful. it just wears out just before you end up casting it again. So it's not bad. I like how consistent this ult is, and the fact that it gives you the movement speed means that this character automatically gets shoved into a speed farming character. Now, as far as just pure movement speed from dungeon to dungeon, Bard is top 5. He definitely keeps up with the best of them. Where he falls off is his damage, because again, I want to reiterate, 9.5, 9.7 mil. You're sitting there thinking that that's a lot. Here, let me just for perspective here, let's swap over to the Vanguard. And our Vanguard is going to end up having a basic attack damage of 11 mil. Now, the other thing you gotta consider is that we attack considerably faster, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, versus you know, the Bard, where the Bard actually has a really weird 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. So with that said, the Bard either needs to be adjusted where attack speed affects the character a lot more and it has consistent damage going out rather than doing this weird strumming animation, which obviously would require a lot more work, and I don't see them doing that. Or because of the fact that the damage is going to end up being way slower, it needs to attack a lot higher damage values. And I know that the devs, again, you know, they're probably not gonna buff the character that much because they think that this is a support character because that's how they designed it. But it doesn't matter, because even the support aspect is just so bad that it just doesn't matter. Because the whole thing is that even, okay, let's say that we're trying to end up getting our super duper ult so that we can end up doing dealing more damage with our allies, right? So we have to build all the way up to 11 stacks. Building up to 11 stacks is pretty brutal in order to end up doing that. I mean, I guess technically we could just use our battle riff like right now, but I'm just trying to give you guys a perspective right here and just show you, like, look how long this takes. And then we would end up using our ult, if I can ever get the battle one to trigger. Boop. It takes that long to end up building your ult. Pretty much anything that you're fighting at that point is going to be dead anyways. And the biggest point that I would like to argue with this character is, even though, yeah, maybe it would end up actually being a really good buff and end up helping you, a team of people that are at the true end game, you know, using like Ice Sage and whatever else, Chloromancer, blah blah blah. But the whole thing is that literally you could take the Bard and just swap him out for another Chloromancer and you would be doing instantly better. Like, it's not worth the time investment for the ult. So what I would like to see with the ult, a lot of feedback that lots of people have been getting, there's a couple different options. Either it would take less stacks total, or we'd slowly generate stacks over time, and then if we hit the right notation, then we would get more stacks. It needs to be more achievable in order to end up building up those stacks. But even then, it's not that big of a deal, because that's the thing, is if we end up having those stacks, like, let me try it again. Okay, just give me a second here. And yes, I'm going to make a cut because it just takes such an astronomically long time to get to these stacks. But once we do, now we're doing 41 mil. That's more what I'm talking about. So if we could build up stacks a lot easier, then it would be fine. Because the whole thing is that as of right now, the way that it works is just so astronomically bad. Because once we end up losing this stream down here, we end up basically losing all of the stacks. But it's tricky because you can't end up triggering Epic Rift unless you end up spending an ult, which is automatically going to end up consuming a total of 5 stacks. So ideally, I understand what the devs are going for. You would basically build up all your stacks and then you would constantly be fighting to keep this last stack of 5 over and over and over again. But it's not viable. Like, that's the whole thing, is the fact that the game wants you to perform specific actions that take away from the overall damage that you would just be doing with any other character that could just be holding left click. You know? Cool attempt, guys, that you ended up making this weird rhythm character, but I really want to see him be higher damage values at base 1. Like, never mind this whole build up stacks to end up doing more damage type thing. Obviously, it's a cool mechanic and some people are going to love it, but as far as I'm concerned, it just takes way too long for you to get all the way up to 11. Like, it's ridiculous. So Anyways, that's my 2 cents towards it, guys. This was a video that was supposed to be focusing more so on the negative, on the criticisms of the character, because as it stands right now, he just doesn't keep up. I can literally swap all my gear over to the Vanguard or over to another magic character or something, and I'm just going to do better. You know, not only just in speed farming, but also, let's just say the end game is fighting a U10 Leviathan or fighting really deep delves, and even then the bard would be useless inside the delves outside of maybe the boss itself. But even then, again, if we would just swap all of that, you know, because a bard ends up using magic gear, if we swap all of our gems and all of our gear over to the Chloromancer, you're just gonna be better. And I wouldn't have much of a problem with this outside of the fact that the character costs so freaking much to craft. That's the problem, because it costs considerably more than the Vanguard, but is considerably worse than the Vanguard, you know? So you kind of see my problem here. Like, let's take a look at the Chaos Crafter just to give you guys perspective. Here's the Vanguard, which costs all these resources, which basically costs sentient shards. Sentient shards being an item you can only get from rampages, or you can end up crafting the you know, the thing to summon the rampage bosses, which definitely helps you with the sentient shards, whatever. Or there's this guy, which costs sentient shards, bound brilliance, which is time gated, free range electrolyte crystal, which is not as bad, 500 crystalline core, which that's a lot of 5-star dungeons, and then 7,500 bardium, which isn't going to be as bad once the update has been out for like a couple months. But generally, I think bardium is always going to end up being expensive just because it's a tier 5 caving resource and nobody wants to go into the caves. Anyways, that's the problems that I have with the character. Otherwise, I love him. I think that he's hilariously stupid, and I think that they need to play more into that. I actually wish that this character was a bit more gimmicky rather than being complicated. I think that it would have been a lot cooler if maybe our alt just didn't have any of this overcomplicated 3 different buffs and instead would just snare enemies by making them dance with us. That would probably be a lot funner as a character and end up being a lot more useful than what we see before you. Like, I think they ended up overcomplicating it. Still, that said, great first attempt, because Game Ago, technically this is their first class that they've probably built from the ground up. Technically speaking, the Bard has been in the game's code for years, but has always been unfinished, and who knows how much of the class was actually finished in the first place. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, they just built a new class. They didn't build it from the ground up, but they did end up building a new class, and it's a good first attempt, but it does need a lot of work. And again, we're still on the test server, so fingers crossed that we see a change soon, because we have not seen a change on the test server yet, which is, it's a bit weird that he's been on the test server for almost a week now and we haven't seen an update to his damage or anything like that. So anyways, that's my 2 cents towards it. Again, this was a video intended to be overly critical, so sorry if it sounds so negative about some stuff, because I do love the character, and that's why I'm passionate about it and want it to be better, because I want it to be a character that I actually have a choice of, oh, cool, I can actually main this guy, rather than maining it just because it's new, you know, even though it underperforms. Anyways, we still need reworks on all the other characters anyway, so whatever. Have yourselves a great day, gamers. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have a great day. Bye, guys.